Well, hello everyone. My name is Roger Scott. I'm the head trader for Wealth Press, and today is Friday, May 22nd, and as I always say, let's get into it right now. Finally, Friday's here. We've got a lot of news this week. Let me get through the global news. Some things have been going on in China and Hong Kong. There's always something going on in China and Hong Kong that I need to talk about. We got some things going on with jobless claims that I need to talk about. And then I'm going to talk about the biggest surprise of the week. We just got the 13F quarterly filings, and I did some backtesting research. I've got some really interesting things for you today. You are going to be very surprised by what I have for you, but let's start here. So stocks slipped Friday globally, led by nearly a 6% decline in Hong Kong after communist leaders in China proposed legislation that could limit opposition activity in former British colony. This is huge. 6% decline. Folks, a huge move on the Dow Jones is like 3%. That's huge. 6% is massive. China's National People's Congress opened its annual session in Beijing, and Premier Li Keqiang delivered a work report that promises 2 trillion yen, that's $280 billion, in support of local government to help them fight the pandemic and create the jobs as their country struggles to revive growth. The proposal of one of the most controversial items on the Chinese legislative agenda in years has drawn strong rebukes from the U.S. government and rights groups, rightfully so. On Thursday, the White House issued a report attacking Beijing's economic policies, human rights violations, expanding on get tough rhetoric. President Trump expects to resonate with voters ahead of the election in November. The week has been gloomy, to say the least. Jobless claims, and more jobless claims. With the U.S. Labor Department saying the number of people thrown out of work, what a nice way to put it, right? Thrown out of work, since the virus struck has climbed to nearly 39 million. I can hardly believe that. Japan reported weak trade figures, and economic activity in Europe continues to shrink rapidly. Crude oil, we haven't talked about oil for a while. Crude oil started the year at about $60 a barrel, but plummeted earlier this year as demand sank to widespread travel and business shutdowns related to, you know what, Corona. The price has risen this month as oil-producing nations cut back on output, and gradual reopening of economies around the globe has driven up demand. Let's look at the S&P 500 just to give you a good baseline, and then I'll talk about an interesting development that happened this week. So if we look at a study, and we'll simply look at the 200-day moving average, our most basic indication of price movement, we will see that we are still hovering below the 200-day moving average. Let me just delete that. This pinkish or salmon colored line, it's still hovering below, and we have not been able to come across, which means technically the market is still in a bearish cycle. But I am optimistic in what I'm seeing, especially with the NASDAQ 100 leading substantially ahead. Look at this. This is the 200-day moving average. Look at where we're at. We're almost at all-time highs. So things are different. Now, if you look at the Dow Jones, I just wanted to give you the three indices to give you perspective. We're even further. So if I had to give you the three, NASDAQ is obviously leading, followed by the S&P 500, followed by Dow Jones. Here's the thing. The stocks that have the most correlation of these three sectors, tech, consumer discretionary, and healthcare, are doing best. The Dow Jones has mostly these stocks: financial, energy, real estate, industrial, blue chip, consumer staples. It's blue chip. And then the S&P has everything. So that's why you're seeing the sector that has the most tech, consumer discretionary, and healthcare lead, the one that has less follow, and then the one that has least lag behind. And if we were to look at the New York Stock Exchange, that would probably be the least. Now, I've got a good, very interesting surprise for you. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar what 13F filings are, but 13F filings are a document that hedge funds that have more than $100 million in assets under portfolio have to report with the SEC every 45 days. And this tells us what they're buying and what they're holding. Now, if you have a Bloomberg terminal, all you have to do is press one button and you'll get a complete, you can get a visual graphic of all the top holdings. But I didn't want to do it that way because I'll tell you why. If I did it that way, then all the top holdings would be the biggest stocks like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia. I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to do it a little differently. I'm a little sneaky. Can you blame me? Anyhow, what I did was different. I took, over the last 45 days, the top 20 hedge funds that have been gaining, the top 20 performing hedge funds. All right. Then I took their top 5 holdings. And I wanted to see how many of the 20 funds had the same 5 holdings. All right. So here is what I found out. Now, first, I'll do this in holdings. I'll tell you what the top fastest growing hedge funds over the last 45 days. I'll tell you what they're holding, and I'll tell you what they're buying. So first, let's start with what they're holding. And most of these stocks, you'll find that we've covered, or most of them you know about, but there's a few surprises. Now, that's the ones I want to touch on. So 11 of the 20 in the top 5 had Amazon. 7 of the top 5 so these are out of the top 20. So out of the top 20 in the top 5 holdings, 11 had Amazon, 7 had Facebook, 7 had Microsoft, 6 had Alibaba, 5 had Netflix, 4 had Google. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. 4 had Visa and 3 had MasterCard. I was not expecting that. Next one, Shopify. We covered that stock. That's a great growing stock. 2 had Apple. Apple is not as big, as widely held as we expected. Only 2 of the top funds had Apple in their top 5 position. The next stock, though, I think is really interesting because it's been completely below my radar. The top growing funds have this stock as much as Apple, and I've never even barely heard of this. We've traded it once before on technicals, but I've never heard of it. C Limited. It's out of the fastest growing funds, 2 of them have it in their top 5 position. I know, I'm thinking, how did that happen? The next one is JD. We've covered JD here, and United Health. We've covered that as well. Now, let's talk about the positions they're accumulating. So again, first one is Amazon. 8 out of 20 top 5 have Amazon. Makes sense. But guess what the second one is? It's the C Limited again. It's the second most accumulated fund. Out of 20 funds, top funds, 4 are holding it in their top 5 position. 20%. 20%. Look at this thing. Next to Amazon. Have you even heard of this stock? Then we have Visa. Kind of surprising. It's a defensive stock, but I get it. Visa, people are familiar. But get this next one. It's called D-Dog. And again, these are the top 20 growing funds, top 5 positions. D-Dog, never heard of this stock. Completely off my radar. So next one is Netflix. Next one is Facebook. Next one is Teladoc. I showed you this stock. I've previewed this stock for you. So can't say we didn't touch it. Next one is Alphabet. Next one is Workday. We've talked about Workday just the last few weeks. ServiceNow. We've talked about ServiceNow. Then Uber. Then AON. We've talked about this stock a little bit. That's a very aggressively accumulated stock right now. And then finally, Ring Central. So now you have a list. Now, the ones we did just now, that was the stocks that they're holding. So the first one was accumulating. Now it's holding. But I'm really interested in these 2 stocks here because these are completely below my radar. C Limited, ticker symbol SE, and D-Dog, ticker symbol D-Dog. Funds are holding these stocks aggressively. Funds that are gaining strength are holding these stocks. Now, let me give you the top sectors these funds are holding according to their 13F filing. These are the top sectors. I'm just going to read them off to you. Artificial intelligence, we talked about that. Digital payments, we talked about that just a few days ago. Online dating, we talked about Match.com. Mobile gaming, we talked about one of the top stocks just the other day. What's the ticker symbol on it here? We just covered it just a few days ago. Oh, let me give it to you here. God, you can never, ATVI. We just talked about that a few days ago. E-commerce, we've talked about that at length. Live streaming, we talked about Zoom and GoToWebinar. Esports, we haven't talked about that. Social media haven't really talked much about that. Telehealth, teledoc, wealth management, haven't really talked much about that. Big data analytics, I think DDOG, that's one of them, and Gen Z trends. That's more 5G, things like that. We've talked about that. So we've been doing pretty good. But I wanted to give you the biggest surprises in terms of accumulation holdings over the last 45 days by the fastest gaining hedge funds. And that's DDOG and SE. Again, what a surprise. I had no idea. Talk about surprises for everybody, right? So, folks, I've been chasing a lead on what could be the world's most mysterious trading secret. I'm not kidding, and I'm being modest here. A hidden advantage that took me years to track down. I mean, almost 2 decades. Now I finally unearthed this elusive triple trigger setup that could boost your retirement by a whopping $3.43 million. I'm not joking around. This little system that I'm talking about, one guy went from $400 to $200 million, and several individuals made $175 million. And this is documented. And I own a huge amount of my returns to this strategy and this topic, what I'm going to talk about. So this is the real deal. And I'm about to reveal the key to unlocking as much as a $200 million in trading profits. Folks, if this sounds too good to be true, it's not. It's the real deal. I knew I was going to come out with this for you. I did. This is a breakthrough. You want to learn about this. Click the link below or follow the button at the end of this video. Get all the details you need. Do it now. And I hope you guys have a great day. Talk soon.